Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are strapping in for what might be one of the most intense psychological journeys we have ever taken on.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. You, the listener, have brought us this massive stack of source material, and it's a deep look into a world where these elite university rivalries are just, completely tangled up with global organized crime,
Inextricably linked.
and where the relationships, the intimate relationships, are forged not in harmony or anything like it, but in calculated obsession, brutal power dynamics, and a kind of acceptance of profound darkness.
It's true. The material here, it's less about a traditional story and much more like a forensic psychological case study. We're really dealing with two individuals whose internal lives are just a mess of inherited psychopathy, trauma, and this hyper-control.
So what's our mission here?
Our mission is to go beyond just the surface plot points. We want to extract the critical insights from these really charged character dynamics to understand the mechanics of obsession. And, the psychological transformation that happens when that mask they've been wearing finally slips. And maybe most importantly, how total acceptance from another person can successfully fill a pre-existing and often terrifying internal void.
All right, so let's set the stage. The world building. We're based at a place called King's U, which the source material describes with zero affection.
Oh, none at all.
It calls it a godforsaken island on the coast of the dreary, dark, and depressing United Kingdom.
It's just a miserable backdrop, isn't it? It really sets the tone for this battle royale that's about to unfold.
It does, and this dreary setting hosts this extremely high-stakes turf war that's, disguised as a simple student rivalry.
Exactly. King's U is the battleground for two deeply connected secret societies. On one side, you have the Heathens. They're led by our primary subject, a guy named Gareth Carson.
And you can spot them by their masks, right?
Right. They're visually identifiable by their distinct neon stitch masks.
And on the other side, their rivals, the Serpents. They're led by Yulian Dmitriev, and they wear white skeleton masks, but each one has a unique symbol on it to tell them apart.
But the critical context here, and this is everything, is that these aren't just, college kids pulling pranks or vying for prestige. The stakes are profoundly higher.
Because it's all about their families.
Absolutely. This rivalry is lethal because of their lineage. These young men are almost universally the heirs, the sons of notorious generational organized crime leaders.
The sources are very specific about that.
Very. Yulian, for example, is the son of the Chicago Bratva leader. And we should probably clarify some terminology here right out of the gate, just for you listening.
Good idea.
When we refer to the Russian mafia, or Bratva, the term they use for their supreme boss, their leader, is the Pakan. So these young men are children of the Pakan.
And it's not just Yulian. Gareth's own cousin, Vaughn, he's tied to the New York Bratva Pakan.
Exactly. So this isn't just school. It's a training ground, a place where generational mafia politics are being played out with literal life and death consequences, all of it just happening under this thin veil of academia.
Okay, let's unpack our main subject then. Gareth Carson.
Gareth.
The initial public assessment paints him as the fixer. We see him described as the ultimate golden boy. He has the highest GPA. He's adored by his professors.
He's on track for a career in international politics. A clean, successful life. It's a performance he has absolutely perfected.
And that's really the core of it, isn't it? This profound psychological dilemma at his center. It's this dichotomy between the cultivated public perfection
And his inherent, almost pathological true self. He consciously masters this spotless persona. He even refers to it himself as an unparalleled emulation of what he thought his powerful father demanded of him.
dependable, responsible, reliable.
Just perfect, yeah. And what's chilling is how deep this performance goes. It's maintained even in his most vulnerable moments.
Like with sex, the source notes that.
Yes. Even during sex, he ensures his partners always climax first, just to maintain his, and this is a quote, 10 out of 10 recommendation rate.
Wow.
Its performance are taken to the absolute extreme.
That level of attention to performance suggests an incredible amount of mental energy is just spent policing himself. But then there's the other version of him, the true self. And it is terrifyingly dark.
It is. He admits he's inherently drawn to sadism, to bloodlust, to inflicting harm. This isn't just, a hidden dark side. It's a necessary release for him.
A purge.
A purge. He only lets his true self loose to purge that dark energy when what he calls the void, this massive internal emptiness, gets too wide.
We need to analyze this void. What is that, psychologically speaking?
Well, especially given the context of inherited psychopathy that the sources mention, this void seems to represent a fundamental deficit in emotional connection and intrinsic self-worth. It's the emptiness that his carefully constructed mask is trying to prevent the world from ever seeing.
And the ways he imagines filling it, they're profoundly dangerous.
Oh, yeah. The sources give us startlingly specific details of his internal landscape. His fantasies are, well, they're vivid.
They really are. He fantasizes about his rival, Julian, seeing him with an arrow between his eyes and blood dripping down his face. That's a direct quote.
But it's the fixation on vulnerability that really stands out. He mentions watching people's pulse points, just wishing he could slice them off and watch them choke on their own blood until their eyes are empty.
That focus on the empty eyes is crucial. What is that about?
I think it speaks to a need to control the ultimate vulnerability, which is death. He sees himself as having, quote, the looks of a prince, but the personality of a devil.
And he's self-aware about it. He openly admits his fear that he would become a serial killer, if not for the rigid structure and influence of his family.
And that's key. The control he exhibits over these dark impulses isn't moral. He doesn't have a true moral code to speak of. It's purely pragmatic.
It's a calculation.
It's entirely a calculation. His self-imposed rule of no killing is based entirely on avoiding prison, because prison would ruin his perfect life. He's choosing freedom and status over fulfilling his deepest, darkest needs.
And if we dig into the roots of this incredible need for self-control, we find some pretty profound trauma.
We do. He grew up feeling overshadowed, basically invisible, next to his attention-seeking younger brother, Killian. And that just pushed him constantly toward becoming the perfect, non-worrisome son, the reliable one.
But the real catalyst, the moment that seems to have truly cemented his worldview, was a horrifying incident with his French teacher, a man named Mr. Laurent.
Right. This is where it all comes from. Laurent was seeking revenge against the New York mafia faction that's connected to Gareth's maternal family. So he lured a young Gareth away and locked him in a basement.
And this is where the trauma went from just a psychological threat to absolute visceral certainty. He didn't just escape.
No. He witnessed the horrific and immediate retaliation when his aunt located them. He saw Laurent's corpse with his head blown up and his intestines visible. This wasn't a warning. It was a demonstration of absolute power and loyalty.
That's an image that would be burned into anyone's mind, let alone a child's.
Exactly. This is the moment that cemented his trust issues into an absolute pathology. I mean, when you are betrayed and then you immediately see that betrayal answered with such extreme, gruesome violence, it changes your entire philosophy.
And that's where the fascination with dead eyes comes from.
It's almost religious for him. The source notes that when people lie to him or disappoint him now, his instinct isn't to walk away or negotiate.
To eradicate them.
It's to eradicate them. He wants them all dead. And this explains so much about why, when he's betrayed later in the narrative, his reaction is so disproportionately violent and self-destructive. Betrayal to Gareth isn't just an inconvenience. It's a fundamental violation that triggers his core trauma.
Okay, so that's Gareth. A perfect, polished monster held together by sheer willpower and trauma.
Let's pivot now to the other core subject of this deep dive. The man who ultimately shatters Gareth's carefully curated control, Kayden Davenport.
And just like Gareth, Kayden presents an equally polished, but I would say far more menacing, dual identity.
I agree. His public persona is Kayden Lockwood. He's this meticulous, maybe even boring, criminal law professor.
The sources are almost comical in their description of his routine, aren't they? It really underscores the level of control he projects.
It does. Swimming at 6 a.m., meticulously brewing coffee, reading physical newspapers, not digital, like a grandpa.
And taking a precise, predictable 45-minute walk to campus. This level of rigid predictability, it feels like a calculated defense mechanism.
It absolutely is. Every single action is a rejection of chaos. But beneath the veneer of Kayden Lockwood is the reality. Kayden Davenport, a high-ranking, highly effective operative within the dangerous Vancouver Mafia organization.
And his upbringing was just as calculated as his daily routine.
Oh, even more so. He's the son of a high-status Vancouver father, and he was explicitly raised to be a weapon. His childhood training was brutal. 3 days in a well with snakes, execution training starting at age 7.
7 years old.
7. And he endured various poison and pain training regimens. He views his physical form not as a vehicle for pleasure or comfort, but purely as a weapon I wield to get where needed.
So why the career change? He leaves practicing law to take this teaching role, and the source makes it clear this wasn't for the love of academia.
No, it was cover. His initial motivation was to fulfill a deep-seated need for revenge against those connected to his deceased wife. Specifically, he was targeting people connected to Alexander Carson.
Gareth's powerful grandfather.
The very same. So his revenge plot runs directly into the most dangerous constraint placed on him by his own organization, the Vencore constraint.
This is a huge deal for their story.
It's everything. The Vencore organization is aggressively and violently homophobic. Gay members are strictly forbidden and subject to immediate execution. This rule is not flexible.
So Kayden's intense, unexpected attraction to Gareth, it's not just a complication.
It's a literally life-threatening liability. Every single interaction he has with Gareth risks his life.
And we have to talk about his deceased wife, Cassandra. The source is very specific that their marriage wasn't a grand romance.
Not at all. It was described as a practical, harmonious partnership, rooted in mutual goals and friendship, not deep love. But her brutal death, raped and murdered by Senator Baltimore and his cronies, that was the catalyst for Kayden's initial quest for vengeance. It drove him to target anyone connected to those responsible, which included the Carson family line.
And the depth of that original mission, it's literally etched onto his skin.
It is. He originally had a lily tattoo, which was Cassandra's symbol, but the sources reveal this crucial moment of transformation. He later mutilated that tattoo, physically scarring it over, and replaced it with a new one featuring crossed arrows and a compass.
That's more than just a cover-up.
It's a symbol of rebirth. It's a signal of a new, more dangerous direction. His original motivation was specific vengeance for his wife. The transformation of the tattoo signals that his mission is shifting from grieving the past to building a future that unexpectedly and very dangerously comes to center entirely around Gareth.
All right, this is where the action starts. And this is where Gareth's perfect plan to destroy his rival Julian just implodes spectacularly.
It really does. Gareth's initial plot was a classic fixer move. It was designed for political and personal gain, intending to humiliate Yulian Dmitriev in such a brutal way that Yulian's own father would be forced to put a bullet in his head.
It's cold and calculated.
Meticulously planned. He infiltrates the Serpent's party wearing a plain white skeleton mask. He drugs the man he thinks is Yulian, intending to execute the humiliation phase. And this reliance on planning and infiltration, it really confirms Gareth's own assessment of his abilities.
Right, he knows he's not a brawler.
He's not good with his fists. He excels at calculated intellectual violence. He even harbors this wish that he could have slipped his bow in with him to put an arrow between his eyes, which, connects right back to his darkest fantasies.
But the man he drugs is not Julian.
It is not Julian. It is Kayden, the highly trained operative. And Kayden, wearing Julian's mask, allows Gareth to initiate the plan, only to reveal his own true, terrifying mark. This massive, lifelike 3D black snake tattoo coiling across his chest and abs.
The moment Gareth realizes he's drugged a lethal imposter, the power dynamic just flips, instantly and violently.
The shock is profound because Kayden asserts absolute dominance immediately. He doesn't just disarm Gareth, he calculatedly wounds him. He grazes Gareth's hand with a bullet, a move designed entirely for psychological impact, not for an immediate kill.
And then he forces Gareth into this humiliating submission at gunpoint.
Using verbal degradation, calling him a whore and a little monster, and asserting total control over Gareth's body.
And Gareth's reaction to this is the core of his identity fracture. He's physically injured. Kayden hurt him more, he says, than anyone in my entire life, and he's deeply humiliated.
Yeah.
Yet the experience triggers an immediate, undeniable sexual response. He notes his cock growing heavy in my jeans.
And Kayden, being the profiler he is sharp enough to notice this. He confirms it, jamming his shoe against Gareth's hardening cock and labeling him a little masochist.
It's a total psychological and sexual identity crisis for Gareth, happening in real time. He's horrified, and he's in denial. The source quotes his thoughts, "I'm not getting hard due to sucking cock. That is not fucking possible."
That's the sound of the perfect mask cracking wide open. He realizes that the man hunting him is not only dangerous, but someone who uniquely activates and accepts the forbidden dark desires he has spent his entire life trying to suppress.
All that carefully maintained control is just invalidated in an instant by a stranger's dominance.
Meanwhile, Kayden is processing this event with the precision of the criminal profiler he essentially is. He recognizes Gareth immediately as a criminal profiler's wet dream. He sees the textbook signs of antisocial personality disorder and narcissism right there underneath that perfect exterior.
So his goal shifts?
Immediately. His objective shifts from simple revenge to absolute psychological conquest. He's going to make him suffer, and more importantly, he's going to break that mask permanently.
And the rage Gareth feels is immediately counterbalanced by this uncontrollable physical reaction that forces him to question everything about his sexuality and his identity.
So this initial confrontation, it basically establishes the baseline for their entire dynamic. And from that point on, Kayden begins this methodical psychological war using Gareth's most protected traits, his pride, his narcissism, his reputation, as weapons against him.
He's not trying to get physical submission at first.
No, not at all. He wants a mental collapse.
And the classroom becomes the first major battleground. This is where Gareth's golden boy persona is most precious to him.
And Kayden targets that reputation directly. He humiliates Gareth publicly for being distracted, labeling him a spoiled, rich little brat right in front of his peers. The shame is a tactical tool.
What's so fascinating is how he weaponizes the subject material itself. Criminal law.
He does. He starts using concepts like actus reus, which is the physical act of the crime, and mens rea, the guilty mind. He is literally dissecting Gareth's own internal life in front of the entire class.
And he specifically uses the topic of rape as a direct psychological attack, forcing Gareth to relive the humiliation and the violence of that night at the party.
The stress is so intense, the source notes, Gareth actually snaps the pen he's holding in his hand. Kayden is explicitly, and this is another quote, ripping open the stitches, kill sutured, and thrusting his fingers inside the wound.
He's enjoying it.
He is actively enjoying reminding Gareth of his deepest humiliation. It's a power play.
This psychological tension then immediately transitions into a literal game of cat and mouse. Gareth, who's just fueled by rage at this point, begins stalking Kayden.
And the source notes, he's good at it. He's methodical and could apply for a professional stalker. He's deploying the same meticulous planning he uses for his fixer jobs.
But Kayden is never the victim in this scenario.
Never. He immediately recognizes the stalking, and rather than reporting it or getting scared, he finds it euphoric.
Why euphoric?
Because it validates his power over Gareth. He interprets the stalking as Gareth pouring out his bad habits, this uncontrollable need for Kayden's attention, even if that attention is filtered through rage. It proves to him that he can occupy Gareth's mind completely.
And Kayden's counter tactic is brilliant in its own way. He actively encourages the stalking. He takes these long, predictable tours around the town center.
But then he indulges in what the source calls soul-crushing small talk with strangers. He knows that typical human interaction and boredom are lethal weapons against a narcissist like Gareth, who thrives on high stakes and drama.
He's draining him mentally.
Exactly. He is trying to snub as many neurons as possible in Gareth's head, just draining him mentally through mundane repetition. It's an intellectual dominance game.
So this creates the core structure of their interaction. It's this cycle of punishment and reward, and it's all designed to completely tame Gareth.
Yes. Kayden deploys physical pain, verbal humiliation like telling Gareth his mouth is the only useful thing about you. But he always follows it up with the specific reward Gareth actually needs.
Which is what?
Attention, absolute possessiveness, insisting that he's Gareth's one and only. And crucially, the quiet acceptance of Gareth's dark little monster side. Kayden sees the darkness and he accepts it, which is the validation Gareth never got from his lifelong striving for perfection.
And Gareth starts to realize that he's changing. He's realizing he actually enjoys the loss of control and the pain.
There's a moment after a violent incident where Kayden is wiping him down and applying ointment to his wounds, and Gareth confesses in his inner monologue, "I don't hate it per se." He's starting to crave the unique attention and the anchoring presence that keeps that terrifying void at bay.
But the biggest internal battle he's fighting is the identity crisis around his sexuality.
It's a huge struggle for him. He insists he is not gay. He's struggling fiercely with these physical reactions he has, but only to Kayden.
He even uses an anonymous forum, which the sources call V, to try and explore this profound confusion.
He does. He questions if he's fluid or gray ace or simply obsessed. He's performing all these mental gymnastics to avoid the label gay.
He even tries watching gay pornography, right? Hoping to clarify things for himself.
Yes, and she finds it boring. He just concludes, "I'm not gay." End of the story. But the moment of realization solidifies when he sees a man being fingered on screen and immediately pictures Kayden, which leads to an instant physical reaction.
So the realization is it's not about gender.
It's not. The realization is profound. It's not about gender or a general label. It's singularly about Kayden.
He eventually admits this to his cousin Nico.
He does. He says he's not sure he changed lanes, and he concludes, "I'm not sure I did or would, for that matter. It's just one person."
This singular, all-consuming nature of his obsession is the key takeaway then.
It really is. Kayden hasn't made Gareth gay. Kayden has made Kayden sexual. This confirms that the attraction isn't based on traditional desire, but on the unique psychological role Kayden plays in Gareth's life. He's the one and only person capable of exerting the necessary control to quiet the void.
So this intense, incredibly volatile dynamic they have is just thrown into utter chaos when Kayden's past collides with their present. This is the breaking point.
It is. Gareth finds out the complete truth about Kayden. The marriage to Cassandra, her death, and the original revenge plot that was targeting his own family, specifically his grandfather, Alexander Carson.
And this information doesn't come from Kayden, it's leaked to him.
Yes, it comes from an external source, a man named Declan, who sends him video evidence. This information confirms Gareth's deepest, most traumatic fear, that he was manipulated, that he was just being used as a means to avenge this deceased wife.
And his response is catastrophic.
He spirals immediately. The void, that terrifying internal emptiness that Kayden's presence had been so successfully saturating, it returns. But the source says it's 10 times worse than before.
Yeah.
Wider, deeper, emptier.
And he becomes violent.
In a fit of complete devastation and rage, he begins hitting his head against the wall and violently slashes his own arm, seeking physical pain to cope with the emotional devastation.
Let's pause on that self-harm. Why does he do that? What's the psychology there?
For Gareth, pain is control. When his emotional anchor, who is Kayden, proves to be a lie, the chaos is overwhelming. He's attempting to re-anchor himself by forcing his body to feel something solid, something measurable, and that thing is pain.
The source material makes it clear that Kayden's mere existence had previously filled that emptiness.
It saturated it. So the removal of that truth creates a vacuum so powerful it threatens to completely consume him.
And what's so critical here is Kayden's response when he sees the self-harm.
He is immediately racked with remorse. He recognizes the magnitude of his betrayal. He sees that Gareth hurt himself for him, driven by the fear of being disposable.
And he tries to explain.
He frantically reassures Gareth that he never loved Cassandra in the way Gareth feared, reiterating that their marriage was just a practical, harmonious partnership. He confesses that his vengeful plans had entirely changed since meeting Gareth, admitting he feels all sorts of emotions I thought I was incapable of toward him.
This is the first time the cold, perfect operative admits genuine emotional vulnerability.
It is, and this admission is immediately followed by the physical climax of the conflict. Kayden's brother, Grant, and Declan, who are connected to Vencor, launch an attack.
So Kayden has to choose.
He recognizes the immediate existential threat to Gareth. He must choose between his life within Vencor and his unpredictable, dangerous life with Gareth.
And he chooses Gareth.
He chooses Gareth. The defining moment of commitment is Kayden taking a bullet for him. This act of ultimate sacrifice leads to this intense hospital vigil.
And it's during this time that Gareth learns the full, dangerous extent of the Vencor threat.
Yes, he learns they would execute Kayden for being with a man. He now understands, without a shadow of a doubt, that Kayden truly chose him over his life, his legacy, and his powerful organization. This sacrifice is the final, undeniable validation that Gareth needed.
And this sacrifice changes the fundamental power dynamic again. It solidifies their commitment, but this time it's on Gareth's terms.
100%. While Kayden is recovering, still weak, Gareth insists on taking the dominant role during sex, righting Kayden. This is a massive psychological shift.
He's asserting his claim.
He's asserting his claim. Kayden's life is now intrinsically linked to him, and Gareth will command that commitment. And he finally drops the last pretense of denial and admits the truth he had been fighting this whole time.
He says, I want this for my whole life. I never want to leave his embrace.
The profound fear of the void is finally replaced by the profound peace of their codependence.
So, following this reckoning and Kayden's recovery, we move into the final phase of their story, the unconventional structure of the relationship 6 months later, and the foundation remains dark, deeply possessive, and absolute.
And this possessiveness is mutual. It's defining. Kayden demands absolute exclusivity, telling Gareth, I will not be sharing you with anyone. He admits that the mere thought of anyone else touching Gareth makes him downright murderous.
He isn't trying to change Gareth's darkness.
No, he's claiming ownership of it.
And Gareth tests this immediately, doesn't he? He asks Kayden about having a threesome.
Yes, but it's not because he genuinely wants one. It's purely a test to see the limits of Kayden's possessiveness. And when Kayden reacts exactly as he expected.
Gareth mirrors that darkness perfectly. He says, I'd kill them, you know I would.
They realize they are each other's darkness and light, two halves of a toxic, symbiotic whole. They have found acceptance in the one person who not only sees their capacity for violence, but actively participates in walling it off from the outside world.
What's often overlooked when you analyze this intensity is the immediate and frankly bizarre family support system that just snaps into place around them.
It's incredible. The Vancouver threat is neutralized, not through diplomacy or peace talks, but through massive coordinated security efforts orchestrated by Gareth's extended mafia network.
His father, his grandfather, his brother Killian.
And crucially, V's father, the Russian mafia Pakan. The entire network mobilizes to protect Kayden for one reason and one reason only. Because he is Gareth's.
And this family acceptance is a huge moment of personal resolution for Gareth. His father finally accepts Gareth's true nature and his sexuality.
The father admits he was afraid of losing the perfect son he thought he had. He tells him, "You're my son, I'd never find you disturbing." And he even expresses pride that Gareth is finally happy.
That removes the original reason for Gareth's mask in the first place, that need to be the perfect heir.
Completely. And we also get this strange injection of dark humor and acceptance through his cousin, Nico, who himself found love with his enemy's twin, Brandon. Nico refers to this whole phenomenon as the Fun Dick Alliance.
We should probably spend a moment on that detail because it says a lot about their world.
It provides essential cultural context. Within these brutal traditional mafia structures, loyalty to blood is paramount. And if a relationship makes the heir functional and stable, the unconventional nature of that relationship, even one based on submission and obsession, is simply absorbed and accepted by the family unit.
The goal is stability and continued power.
That's it. And if Kayden provides stability to their little monster, then he's embraced.
The ultimate sign of permanent commitment arrives 6 months later, signifying their entrance into a new, established phase of their life.
Yes. Kayden buys Gareth a beautiful, previously unsaleable house in New York, a physical manifestation of their new, grounded life together. He presents Gareth with an engagement ring and asks him to marry him and take his last name, Davenport.
And the name change is hugely significant.
Immensely. Gareth had previously tattooed the name Davenport onto a hockey jersey. It was an act of symbolic ownership before the fact. So accepting the name is accepting the identity and accepting the control that Kayden represents.
And Gareth accepts ecstatically. He's finally achieved the ultimate permanent claim on the only person who sees his totality.
The source material is very clear about their status. Their relationship is toxic and unhealthy, but it is irrevocably intertwined. This is not a redemption arc for either of them. It's a commitment to a shared pathology.
And Kayden promises to continue being Gareth's anchor, offering the ultimate containment policy for Gareth's darkest urges.
It's an incredible promise. He says, "I'll bring you a ways to space and hold your hand while you do it, if Gareth ever gets the uncontrollable urge to kill."
That's a promise of controlled, supervised violence.
It is. Kayden isn't trying to make Gareth a better person. He's promising to be the structure that stops Gareth from destroying himself or their life together. It's the perfect, terrifying end for two morally complicated individuals who found peace in their mutual darkness.
So, this deep dive took us on a journey through the fractured minds of two men, both of them trained as weapons, who ultimately found a highly codependent and permanent peace. A peace forged in violence, submission, and absolute acceptance of their most terrifying traits.
I think the key takeaway for you, the learner seeking knowledge in human dynamics, is understanding the role Kayden played in filling Gareth's psychological void. For Gareth, Kayden was far more than a lover or even an obsession. He was the key. He was the key to unlocking and containing his true self.
It is the acceptance.
The profound psychological acceptance. The removal of the mask that Gareth had spent a lifetime constructing that finally filled the deepest emptiness that his inherited psychopathy and childhood trauma had created. Kayden didn't try to fix Gareth. He simply claimed all the broken parts and provided the necessary structure.
The source material ends with this intense, permanent commitment forged in blood and obsession. For you listening, seeking knowledge in human dynamics, we have to ask the final provocative question that builds on this strange, toxic piece.
If the ultimate source of stability and peace in your life is the only person who sees and accepts your capacity for violence, does that acceptance validate the darkness or simply contain it?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope this knowledge proves useful on your journey.